The biggest lie in modern finance is that you need a $30,000 annual subscription to access actionable market intelligence. For decades, the gap between institutional quants and retail traders wasn't just data, it was the compute power to process it. But something shifted. While the masses are paying $20 a month to have their prompts censored by cloud-based AI, a new class of desktop quants is emerging. They aren't renting intelligence, they're owning it. By running hyper-specialized local LLMs on consumer hardware, these traders are bypassing the latency, privacy risks, and ethical guardrails of the cloud to find signals that big box AI is programmed to ignore. When you feed your proprietary trading strategy or sensitive watch lists into a cloud-based model, you're essentially handing over your alpha to a third party. Cloud providers have the right to train on your data, potentially neutralizing your edge. Local models, however, operate in a completely air-gapped environment. We aren't just talking about privacy, we're talking about speed. In a market where sentiment shifts in milliseconds, waiting for a server in Northern Virginia to process a token can be the difference between a winning entry and chasing a pump. Local inference eliminates the handshake, giving you the raw, unfiltered truth of the tape. The foundation of the desktop quant setup isn't a single app, it's a stack. We start with a Llama or VLLM as our inference engine. This allows us to run models like Llama 3 or Mistral 7B with near-zero configuration. These models have been benchmarked to outperform GPT 3.5 in specific reasoning tasks, especially when fine-tuned on financial corpora. Imagine a model that doesn't just know what a short squeeze is, but can parse the last 500 Reddit threads and 100 news API headlines to calculate a real-time sentiment score without a single byte leaving your router.
A model is only as good as its diet. Our local stack uses Python-based scrapers like Scrapey or Beautiful Soup to ingest RSS feeds, SEC filings, and social media clusters. But raw text is noise. We use unstructured libraries to clean this data locally before feeding it into a vector database like ChromaDB or Face. This creates a local brain, a searchable, high-dimensional map of the market's current psychological state. You're not just reading the news, you're mathematically mapping the consensus.
The real magic happens when we move from single prompts to agentic workflows using frameworks like CrewAI or LangChain. In this setup, one local model instance acts as a data researcher, while another acts as a risk manager. They debate the validity of a trade before it's even presented to you. This local multi-agent system can scan thousands of on-chain metrics or historical CSVs simultaneously, looking for anomalies that a human or a generic cloud bot would simply overlook. But how do we feed this monster without crushing a system? Let's talk practical execution. You take a standard CSV of historical price action and combine it with a sentiment score generated by your local model. By using a retrieval augmented generation or RAG setup, you can ask your local AI, based on the last 3 times the RSI hit 30 and the sentiment on X was bearish, what was the 48-hour outcome? The local model queries your private database and gives you a probability-weighted forecast. This isn't crystal ball gazing, it's high-speed, localized backtesting. Most traders follow the trend. Desktop quants find the divergence. By running sentiment analysis across specific sectors, like semiconductor earnings versus retail demand, your local setup can identify undervalued sentiment. If the cloud AI is telling everyone to buy the hype, your local model, free from RLHF bias, might point out the decaying volume or the shift in developer activity on GitHub. It's about finding the delta between public perception and raw data. The biggest bottleneck for the desktop quant is VRAM. To run a 70 billion parameter model on a consumer card, we use quantization, specifically GGUF or EXL2 formats. This process compresses the model's weights from 16-bit to 4-bit, or even 2-bit, with minimal loss in reasoning capability. This allows a standard 3060 or 4090 GPU to handle models that previously required an enterprise-grade A100. It is the democratization of high-performance computing, happening right on your desk. You don't need a server rack, but you do need thermal management. Running local inference for hours during market opens will stress your silicon. We recommend undervolting your GPU using MSI Afterburner to maintain clock speeds while reducing heat. Furthermore, offloading specific layers to your system RAM, though slower, can allow you to run massive models that exceed your VRAM limit. It's about finding the Goldilocks zone of tokens per second versus model accuracy. For those on a budget, look into Unified Memory Architectures, or NVMe paging. While not as fast as dedicated VRAM, a Gen 5 SSD can act as a secondary buffer for your vector database. This setup ensures that your market brain can hold millions of data points without forcing a system reboot. Every megabyte of RAM is a potential data point in your next trade. The goal is a balanced system where no single component becomes a catastrophic bottleneck. The shift from cloud-reliant to locally sovereign isn't just a tech choice, it's a strategic evolution. As AI models become more restricted and cloud costs continue to climb, the desktop Quant stands alone. You have the tools to scrape, analyze, and execute with total privacy and zero monthly overhead. The market is a game of information asymmetry. By running your own models, you are no longer the product being sold. You are the architect of your own edge. The era of the black box is over. The scripts, the models, and the hardware are all within your reach. Start small. Download a llama. Grab a historical CSV and ask your first question. The data is out there. The compute is under your desk. It's time to stop renting your intelligence and start building your legacy. Subscribe for the deep dive configuration guide on the next video. Your local edge starts now.